are coming up in our next segment. Michael Ford, U.S. Olympic sprint coach and Baylor track coach, joins us on 365 Sports with Paul Craig. I'm David Smoak. Michael, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. So when you got the call or the invitation, what was that like, and what does that mean to you about being a part of the U.S. Olympic team?
Well, it was late at night, so I was almost half asleep when I got the email. Actually, I was checking email that night, but I kind of heard in last summer that I may be on staff, and kind of just waiting for the paperwork to kind of go through. But when I guess thought about it a little bit later, but just a huge honor. Olympics only come around every 4 years. And then for the USA track committee, and then some of the athletes advisory committee nominated me and picked me. It's just a huge honor to represent the United States and also represent Baylor and people back at home.
And it's in Paris, obviously overseas in France. Track is a sport that's very much international. Have you been there before, or what other countries have you actually gone and run yourself or coached?
So this will be actually my second time in Paris. The last time I went was actually right after the Olympics in '08. So I haven't been there since '08. But I've been to Paris. Coach Hart blessed me to go with him to Athens, Greece. So that was my first Olympic games ever that I've ever attended. And I went to Rio, of course, when I was working with Trayvon Johnson. Mm-hmm. Pretty much everywhere. I've been to the islands, pretty much everywhere in Europe, London. I think the only Olympics I haven't been to in the last few were the London Olympics, of course, and then the ones in Tokyo.
So I know we have not had qualifying, and that doesn't come until June yet, but obviously you've got some idea of the field of athletes. How confident do you feel in the team that we're going to be able to build here in the United States?
Well, we're always one of the big things for the U.S. team has always been the number one country in the world, and I don't think that'll change this year. We had a great World Championships last year. Actually, the last two World Championships have been great for the U.S. And pretty much everyone that were on those two teams are still running. So I'm looking forward to being able to help out as much as I can with those athletes.
You mentioned Coach Hart, and obviously the beloved track coach that has been a part of the Olympic Games. And then you mentioned Trayvon, but the names like Michael Johnson, Jeremy Warner, Witherspoon, Williamson, among others. The track and field, I guess you could say, roster and team at Baylor has a rich history in the Olympic Games. Do you feel like that probably helps too?
Yeah, I think it does. I think that we always want to do well at the conference level and the national level in the college scene. But then we're also, as we're recruiting kids, we're always talking to them about going to the next level. And so I think we've done a great job. Of course, Coach Hart started it, and I'm just trying to live that legacy on and get more people. And I think we do a great job with USA Track and Field. And so I think Coach Hart was a coach also on the Olympic team. So just following that tradition and being honored by our peers, I think that's the big thing for us.
What does this do for you when it comes to recruiting now athletes to come to Baylor? It certainly can't hurt.
No, it doesn't hurt. I think my big priorities, kind of not when I found out that I may be on the staff, was especially with the 25, the class of 25, is just making sure that I can do some home visits as quickly as possible, because I know my summer is going to be a little shorter than normal, and that's normally when I do a lot of the visits. So now it's just trying to get visits in on my off weekends or during the week, because I don't want to forget about that, because, Baylor University is the main focus, at least right now it is. And but it's been helping a lot. I've been getting a lot of support, and even the kids, recruits I've seen so far this year, they've been really excited about me being on the team.
How is Trayvon's health? And I know he's had to battle through it. We've had him on this show a handful of times. Love the young man from the time he committed out of high school in Florida to Baylor. And is he someone that would have a chance to be a part of that team this summer?
Yeah, you always can count Trayvon in. I mean, actually, it was funny. Me and him were talking this morning. We normally talk about at least once a week, or we're texting back and forth. But he's doing well. He's starting to get back running again, and I think, and hopefully in another 2 months he'll be back on the track and trying to qualify for the. Well, he already has a qualifying standard for the U.S. trials, and hopefully we'll see him in Eugene in the next couple of months.
What's it like to represent your country?
Ooh, man, that's a good question. I think for me, it's everything. I mean, I think being on staff, not many coaches get the opportunity to represent their country on a staff when it's kind of like a hand-picked staff. And every year, every Olympic year, every World Championship year, there's different coaches that are on there. So for me, it's just a huge honor. I've been on, I want to say maybe 5 international teams for the U.S. And the 2 I haven't been on, well, now was the Olympic staff and then also World Championship staff. So for me to get the opportunity to do the Olympic one first was big. And I'm still looking for maybe a couple of years, God willing, that I'll also be on a world staff also. But it's just a huge honor. I mean, I think we're the best country in America, in the world. So it's always good to be able to represent your country in any aspect.
I would think so. I can't imagine. Yeah.
Now, you have obviously been there before, and it'll be different when you're coaching the team, and it's directly your responsibility, but having been there before and seen it, for those who haven't been to the Olympics, especially when you're in that medal round, when you are right there and you've got sprinters going for the medals, what are the few minutes right before that gun goes off like?
Man, I mean, if I don't know if any of you guys ever had a heart attack, but
Thank God, way no. Your heart, yeah.
The way your heart just pounds is, even for a coach. I mean, I've sat in the stands and watched like Trayvon and Darrell Williamson and Reggie and Jeremy, even Michael Johnson, watching him on TV. I mean, your heart is racing. And I think then when the gun goes off, then everything kind of goes back to normal. But those few seconds, a minute or so before that gun goes off, everything is just pounding really hard. It's hard to describe, but the heart attack is probably the closest I could probably get to it.
Are you glad that you coach sprinters and these don't last that long?
Yeah. I tell my kids all the time on the Baylor team is the one thing about track and field that is not like other sports is we don't have the opportunity to call a timeout. When the gun goes off, the race starts and it's going to end when you cross that finish line. In other sports, when you see something going wrong, you at least can call a timeout and refresh it. But in track, the amount of focus you have to have for if it's 9 seconds or if it's 43 seconds or if it's 19 seconds in those sprint races, you have to be locked in for that amount of time.
You're coming off the indoor meet in Lubbock. Texas women won it. Texas Tech men won it again. Incredibly competitive in the Big 12. Can you explain, and I know the SEC, the Pac-12, whatever's left of it, but they have one more year left, and others, they can go too, but what is it like, the milliseconds between first and second or third and fourth, whatever, to medal in the competition within the conference?
Yeah, I mean, and it was different this year too. I mean, you added the new schools that were in there like Houston and BYU and who else?
Cincinnati and UCF, yeah.
Yeah, so it was so different. Where normally, if I had an athlete that was probably ranked 10th last year, now this year they might have been ranked 15th, just because of the depth. I would definitely put our conference against the SEC, but when I looked at the results, I would put our conference up against any conference, talent-wise, in every event. I think the margin for error is less now, because you can't mess up. I mean, it's like this year we had 7 heats of the women's 400, where last year we only had 4.
Mm-hmm.
I think just the depth of the of the new universities that are in our conference, and then next year you add Arizona and Arizona State and not BYU, but Colorado and Utah, and most of those schools are more distance heavy, so the distance events are going to get a little bit more steeper. I know BYU, they didn't even have a conference meet until this year, so I think we were more prepared for the conference championship than they were. But I would say this year at the conference championship, it was probably the most energy I felt in a few years at the conference championship.
I saw the note where you guys had to cancel the event coming up, but you still have many that you'll host at that unbelievable facility right next to McLean Stadium on the Brazos. The disappointment of not having the event that was scheduled, but the fact you still have plenty of ways for a lot of people to watch your team and others come into town.
Yeah, we were definitely disappointed. We just didn't get a lot of some of the, honestly, a couple of universities pulled out, and we, money wise, we just felt that if we had it, we would actually lose money because of the universities that pulled out of it. But I think it was also a blessing in disguise. I mean, we just got back from conference on Sunday. Some of our kids were still a little tired from the conference championship. So this week we'll reload, and then we'll be on spring break next week. And then we have the group that'll go to indoor nationals. They'll compete. And then we actually added a meet on our schedule. We'll actually go to TCU on the 16th of March before the class start meet.
What's it like? I asked you about any time you put USA, whether you're coaching a team or running for it, but you're also with your alma mater and what you've done. What was that? And it's been 3 years, I think, but just to represent where you also competed, what is that like for you? And we haven't talked to you, I think, actually, and that's too long, but since the time when you got the job.
Yeah, it's still unreal. I think this year I've finally kind of like felt in my groove a little bit more. I think the first year was kind of, I always tell people I was a head coach, but I had like a water hose everywhere, putting out fires, trying to learn, because when you're an assistant coach, you just focus on your event area. You know, my job as an assistant was to make Coach Harbor look good, and then even when Coach Hart was a head coach, my job was to make sure he looked good. And so for me now is trusting my assistant coaches, and they've done a great job. And so for me, it was just figuring that out. And then last year went a little smoother. This year it's going a little smoother. And it's just surreal. Like I look at, we've only had 3 head coaches prior. And so for me to be the fourth one, and then also be the first black head coach at least on track, and to be I think the third black head coach at Baylor in the history of Baylor, it's very important to me to represent Baylor, and honestly represent Coach Hart and Coach Harbor, because they've done a great job, and I've learned so much from them.
Thank you, man. Michael, congratulations. Big fan of what you do, and also great opportunity for you, but also good luck with the upcoming indoor nationals, but also what happens when you get back home to start the outdoor season. Thanks for your time. Congratulations.
Well, I appreciate you guys, and thank you for everything y'all do for Baylor Track and Field and Baylor University and Baylor Athletics.
You're welcome. Michael Ford, Baylor Track and Field, U.S. Olympic sprint coach. Stanley Red Wines at Kansas.